Oh, there's just two of us.
Okay.
Okay. I think, can we both say our names? I'm Corey Proxa.
Jesse Guzman?
Jesse Guzman.
Yes.
Maybe I'll turn this table around. You sit on the other side. I think the high school quiet spot.
So are you the official chair
I'm
or?
the official chair. I'm the chair for today since.
For today, okay.
Yeah.
Since you've been here
I've been
more
here
frequently?
consistently.
Yes.
Yeah, and Deshaun is not here again.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
There's a lot going on here, because there's less community, less all these other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, we've had some really good conversations.
Okay.
My view, I'm still having a hard time like sinking my teeth into what we're gonna present on this, for our part of the report.
Our recommendation, is that correct?
I mean, if I'm gonna look, here's the charge again. Part of the comprehensive examination to best meet the needs of the district will consider. Okay, I'm gonna read it again. You probably
Okay.
read it. Is it all right if I read it out loud?
Go ahead and read it out loud,
Okay.
so for both of our sake here.
Sure. The Urbana School District's administration is organizing a special facilities planning committee to advise the Board of Education on the future of Wiley School. Under Board Policy 2150, a special committee may be created to investigate a special purpose. I'm paraphrasing, a special committee is automatically dissolved after presenting its report to the board. To examine the future programming for Wiley School, the committee will review the comprehensive needs of all USD116 buildings and programs, while also considering the financial resources expected to be available to the district. As part of the comprehensive examination to best meet the needs of the entire district, the committee will consider, but not be limited to, reopening Wiley as an elementary, reopening Wiley as a newly themed elementary with a specific purpose like IB or balanced calendar magnet school, reopening Wiley as a second middle school campus that is a 6th grade center, specialized 6th, 7th, 8th grade center, reopening Wiley as a whole school dual language campus. The committee will be co-chaired and include representatives from each elementary school and Urbana Middle School, teachers, support staff, parents, and/or administrators, the Urbana Education Association, district administrators, and members of the Board of Education. There will be an open call for volunteers via survey. The committee's meeting will be publicly noticed. That's it.
Okay. So ultimately, I think our charge from a high school lens is what are our needs?
Right.
And ultimately, what is our recommendation for Wiley? Is that what I gathered from there?
Yes.
From one of those options based off of what the high school overall needs are?
Right, which, yeah, from reading this,
Okay.
that's what I gathered too. And I
Yes.
think ours is the toughest to draw a link between
Yeah.
assessing the high school needs and then what that means our recommendation
Yeah,
for Wiley.
because I don't think I think there's an impact. Like last time I was here, we talked about how there is that impact, but I don't think it's necessarily a direct link. It's more of the secondary impacts that from what happens to Wiley, we will ultimately see at the high school.
Right.
So it's not necessarily like the direct causation, but it's the effects
And I guess-
of this decision.
I mean, you know, we haven't really opened this can of worms, but we did kind of talk about it last time, but just like, unless there is some need at the high school, that the high school needs the space at Wiley, or I don't know how better to say it, but
Yeah.
if there was some way that like really where the greatest need is at the high school, and here's how we could fix that need with the school.
Because if we're just looking at facilities, right?
Right.
I would say, no, there's no need for us to expand, take over, anything like that at this point in time, Wiley. And so I think the options there are what it needs to be like. 'Cause like if you're asking for more staffing, yes, right? If you're asking for more programming, yes. And so things like that, yes. But if we're looking at facility needs, which is what we're here for,
Right.
at this point in time, I would say no. Now, what I say, I think like our parking lot could use an upgrade and drop off could use an
Yes,
upgrade,
yes, yes.
But I'm not sure if, how Wiley would help us with that, right? Besides just saying that, just some exterior needs, and some basic facility upgrades that
Yeah.
we would need, or, some attention to like classrooms where this is only my first few weeks in, but like I've been informed like, there's some plaster that's coming down from the older section of the building that, at some point we need to draw attention to and get fixed where it's not necessarily a danger, it's just an eyesore,
Okay.
right? And so, just, some smaller facility type things that need to be addressed that, through a smaller budget, hopefully can be addressed here in a, not necessarily a short term like a year, but maybe like a 3 to 5 year time span. We address some, some of the cosmetic things, some of the things to make sure the historical aspects of that building stays intact. Because I think it's I've only been in the building for about 2 consistent weeks now. It's got a great feel. It's got a great, like some character to it. It's just how do we, continue to maintain that here in the next few years. And I've just as I'm starting to learn, planning for the fall, looking at, entry and exit for students, but like I'm hearing drop off can be, a huge congestion for families that are dropping students off, where the line backs up, and entry points for students, how can we better address like traffic flow. And part of me, it's, we need to, there's that house that was just torn down, that was demolished, if the district owns that or not, how can we maybe expand the parking lot, and maybe put in another circle for buses or for parent drop-off, things like that.
I remember watching an old board meeting, and there was a presentation by some kind of consultants about that area.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'd have to go back to see when that was or what. Obviously, nothing happened. But do you know anything more about that?
No, but that's on my list to investigate more here.
Yeah.
So as this is only I just started last Tuesday officially full-time, so I'm still, trying to get up to speed on everything, so.
Definitely.
Yes, so.
Yeah, I was just like, I know there was something. I don't know what happened with it. I don't even know, like, why, when they did it, if it was just, like, very preliminary, but I know some consultants drove down and they were like,
okay.
I remember them saying, they remember it was two guys, and one of them had been here before and the other one hadn't. And the one who hadn't, the one who had was like, okay, you approach this, you tell me, and he ended up like going the wrong way down this street because he got confused. And they were like, yeah, it's not good. But then they were like, you've got a lot of space here. Like there's a good amount of,
yes,
square feet to do something with. I don't know if they went even so far as planning it.
Okay. So but that's something that I will certainly, follow up with CEO and, if it's Dr. Avery Tatum or
I'm sure somebody knows more.
the director of maintenance operations to see where that might fall into, or maybe even Dr. Rollins, Katie Rollins. Yeah, so Rollins for the CFO to see where that might be. So
I will just say too, as a parent, I am like, wow, this is a mess.
Okay, so so now I'm hearing from, you're about the second or third parent I've heard about, drop off in particular.
It is a good thing those stores have numbers, because otherwise I'm like, where am I picking you up? Where am I dropping you off? And I'm always in the way, no matter where I'm trying to be to get her. It's not good.
Okay.
And to get there, there's like one street, or you go through the other parking lot, and it's just not. Yeah, and there's a decent amount of space. It just seems like if somebody could redo it, all of that. Especially now that the health center is there too.
Yes.
That's it's going to be, it's a lot of traffic.
And so I guess I'm curious to dig into that a little bit more and to get some more information on where that project might be, or where that landed, or where that was put aside for now.
Yeah, I'd
So,
be curious to hear too.
Yeah, so
That's good.
that could be something that I look into a little bit more
Okay.
for the next time we meet too.
Yeah.
So, but just to draw it back to what happened last time,
Sure.
was data actually reviewed and looked at, or just discussed?
Yes, I mean, we did review it, and I can show you what I put together. You know what, to be perfectly honest, in my view, like, none of it was surprising. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the dropout rates are best for the white students, they're worse for Hispanic, and even worse for Black. Like, they're not trending in a good direction. I mean, the data we looked at wasn't any more detailed than that to tell you a lot
Okay.
about any more than that, and I'd say like none of it was really surprising. I mean, so you look at it, and I'm saying, you know, what are the needs? Like, obviously, this is not okay. You know, this is not our end state. We need to work to address it. And then that's when we started the conversation about, like, if you had a magic wand or unlimited funds, what would you do? And a lot of the, it was John Webster who's here, and Brandon McCaffrey, I think.
Yes.
You know, they talked about staffing, like more staff. And they talked about also, like, I don't want to put words in their mouth because I'm speaking from memory, but I remember them talking about, if not like more personal contact, more students who feel connected, ways to make them feel really connected. And I think somebody mentioned that when the building is smaller, that does help. You get just like fewer students together. That does help, but just so students, there are students who, like, they're the ones who are really struggling and get attention because they're really struggling. And then there are the ones who are doing okay, and maybe they make contacts because, you know, they seek them out. And then there's like some in the middle that are just lost because they're not doing so poorly that they're coming on anybody's radar as a struggling student, but they really don't have a strong connection to the school, and then they end up maybe dropping out or just disappearing because they don't really feel connected to the school.
And so to me, that's, you know, what is it that, you know, a school, and the high school in particular, are students feeling that it is a space that they come occupy and come to because they're required to? Or is it a place that they come to where they feel like they're valued, they're honored, there's an expectation, there's accountability, there's rigor in place for them, mentorship in place for them, relational capacity from all adults who work in that building,
Right.
to really make it a place that they feel like it's a second home versus a place that they just come and occupy, right? And so, well, you know, if we're doing a magic wand, I would say I will never turn down additional staffing. I will never turn down additional money because there's so much more you can do with that. But what at the base level is in place to make sure that students want to be there, they know why they're there, what's their mission, what's their purpose, and to me that comes to the heart of, which is what we talked about, is that relational capacity piece from all adults. Do our scholars, and when I say scholars, I mean all students, feel like they're coming for an education, for a place to be themselves, to have an accountability, high expectations, where we're just not making generalizations or stereotypes of when a student walks through that door, but do we have the common expectation that all our students can succeed, all our students can go to college if they choose, or can be prepared for a career, community college, you know, vocational, whatever it might be, and that we can get all our students ready for whatever path they choose, or military, whatever path they choose. And so to me, it's a lot of systematic things that a school needs to put into place, centered around a culture and climate of positivity, of safety, high accountability, rigor, and are we preparing our students? And one thing I am excited about that I'm going to start to lay the foundations for this year is, you know, is AVID. Abbott is right now at the middle level. It's coming to high
is
school
that?
next year. It is a system/program advancement via individual determination, where it is a class that I'm assuming will be offered next year that I'm going to start planning for, because if it's our 8th graders are in, because it is a class that students can take as an 8th grade, where we identify students who might need additional supports or some refinement with critical thinking, with organization, to make sure that they are ready for a secondary path.
Okay.
And so, but it is just not a class. We have students who take the class who are in it right now at 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and the idea is for them to, when they go to senior, that they take a class as a freshman, sophomore, junior. It is a class that's offered that really focuses on skills that are necessary to be successful in college and in career.
What is it?
Abbott,
What's it?
Advancement via Individual Determination. And so really the heart of it is really putting in place high-yield instructional strategies. For example, reading strategies that you can use across all curricula.
Where did it come from? Do you know?
It is a program that started, I believe it started in Texas or California,
Okay.
and it's now nationwide. And so, but it really looks at 5 areas, and I just said one of them is reading,
Okay.
writing, strategies. We look at inquiry, higher order thinking, higher order questioning, being able to apply, you learn a new concept. How do you learn, how do you retain, and then how can you apply those concepts to be outside of, science,
Yeah.
math, just whatever the concept is, how are we, generalizing it to other areas and applying the principles that you're learning to other areas. With inquiry, collaboration, how are you working together, right? How are you collaborating? Can you work effectively with other groups?
And you said it's not just a class?
No, it's a system that you build throughout the school to really get a sense of, okay, we're here in school,
Yeah.
but we're preparing you for an end game, right?
Yeah.
Whether that be you're choosing college, career, military, vocational school, whatever path you're choosing, but we got to make sure you're ready for that. And so it's building that culture and climate for that, as well as the academic side for that. And so just making students aware. It's also got an aspect of financial literacy to it, like scholarships, applications, grants, loans. And that really builds into the sophomore through senior year with Avid. But also another big piece that I didn't was organization, right? How do you keep yourself organized? How do you keep yourself on task? And those are a lot of those sub-skills, those soft skills that you need
Right.
to be successful, not just, in the workplace, but
Yeah.
in life in general, right? Especially
Definitely.
some of those organization. And so,
Yeah.
that's why I think that, yes, there's, money's good, but it's just like, what have you built in
Yeah.
this school
Yeah.
as well?
That sounds really
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yes.
So it's currently at the middle school?
It's currently, yes, I think it's in 8th grade, because I know, from my understanding, again,
Yeah.
2 weeks into really digging into this, started in 6th grade, 7th grade, and so the cohort's moving up, but there's also students that, right now, it's their 6th grade class, 7th grade, 8th grade, and so it'll go through 6 through 12.
I see.
Ultimately, another 4 years, and students can enroll at any time in the class, or they can exit at any time if they feel like, okay, I'm on the path I need to be on. Now, we typically we want to keep students in Avid, but, at some point, if a student wants to take because they don't need the skills anymore, or they've,
Yeah.
exited out, then they can do that.
Yeah.
But that's just, and you really built that culture and climate in the school revolving around, Wicker strategies, which is, reading, writing, or organization, collaboration, and then really looking at that. There's also, Avid program does have an SEL component to it as well. And so it's all encompassing. A lot of schools have it. Up in the Quad Cities, Champaign has it. A lot of schools up north in the suburbs even have it. And so it's a program that I think is well worth it. I know Dr. Aubrey Tatum's invested in that program as well as it's growing here in Urbana. So
Yeah.
Springfield also has it. So
That's great.
I think Danville too. I'm not sure about Decatur.
So, is it like a curriculum that you buy, or like what?
It's a curriculum system that the district invests in.
Training.
And so, yep, there's training. Teachers are trained in it, and to do different strategies like Socratic seminar, philosophical chairs are some of the bigger things. And learning how to annotate texts, which, ideally a reading writing curriculum would already have. That's a complement to that as well.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of good strategy in there. And again, that is evidence-based, research-based as well.
Yeah,
So,
that sounds really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it's an investment in Avid. And so if you're asking me what is the need, Avid, because it's not necessarily additional staff, but it's a full-on investment and getting our staff trained in Avid.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that sounds like a big undertaking. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No. It's where I was previously. It was an Avid school. It was a national demonstration school, which means that it highlighted the best of what it had, and I'm seeing right there Avid Wicker on the wall right over here.
Oh,
So we can walk over here and take a look so it can highlight the key elements of it. Wicker. Yeah, they need to make it lower, and honestly, I would recommend bigger. So like the writing strategies that talk about the inquiry strategies, the collaboration, organization, the reading is students who read as what's reading related to experiences of disciplinary, literacy, critical, culturally relevant tests, so students actually see themselves and feel empowered to do it, so it's reaching all our students. And so, as it's growing in its implementation phase, it's because I've been with Avid started my 19th year in education. I've been part of Avid, and I've gone to several trainings on Avid over my 17 of my 19 years.
wow. So it's not new. It's been around.
No, it's been around for a long time. I think it started in the 80s.
Oh.
So, and the data out there shows that, an Avid program that is successfully implemented increases graduation and pathways and enrollment into post-secondary.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So.
And is
all
it
right.
for all students?
It's open to all students. It's open to all students.
Anybody can-
Yeah, parents can certainly advocate, but staff is also looks to identify students that might be an ideal fit for it, but it's really open to all students, as it should be. And regardless, once it gets implemented into a building, all students should be exposed to
some of
Avid
it.
strategies, yes,
Yeah.
whether they realize it or not.
Right, right.
So.
Thinking back, like my daughter, she did have some experiences where they taught her organization,
Mhm.
an older
Yep.
daughter, and
Yeah.
she still uses those.
So, yeah, and Avid is just intentional about
Yeah.
making sure that teachers spend time with organization, because to me, that's an underlying soft skill. Once you get
Right.
that down, teachers can, on the back end, focus more on the content and curriculum if they spend time on the front end teaching those organizational skills.
And, some students naturally stumble into a way that works well.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking of my 3 kids.
Yeah.
I mean, my son, he's probably not going to stumble into a way that works well.
Yeah, exactly. And do we really want to rely on a stumbling
Yeah,
way, right?
exactly.
Right, because like some students will find a way to some students do find a natural way to study that's successful for them, right? But with Avid, it really helps make it more intentional, those skills.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I imagine there's still, what else? Or what kind of falls outside Avid? What kind of other programs or supports do you still need that to wrap around it?
Yeah, to me, because just to build off of, from the conversation, yes, and I will say this, more staffing, right? Some facility upgrades, always. But just some other things outside that are just off the top of my head that I'm thinking of, and now I'm starting to get immersed in, and here is just Avid has SEL. I think really strong community partnerships, I think is, because the more we can bring businesses, the more we can bring universities. One thing that I did here through, like, for example, my interview process and through talking to different stakeholders is really trying to build a bigger, stronger connection with the U of I.
Yeah.
Where there's just so much untapped resources there that we need to tap into that. And if there is any resistance from me, because I've heard from one or two people that sometimes the U of I is resistant for some reason to really work with local schools. Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah, why is that?
Yeah.
Because when I reached out in my previous position as a middle school principal, whoever it was at the university, they've always been willing to come out, talk to us, build a relationship with us, and so I want to make sure that we can bring that over here, and we reach out to the U of I with whatever department or college it might be to make sure we build those connections.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and then also I would like to ultimately also with Eastern, with Illinois State, with just other colleges as well, so our students know that there's also more than the U of I. Even though the U of I is right here in our backyard and we should have that potential, but just having our students exposed to what our students should have, and just, Parkland. I still don't know what actually Nick Elder just reached out to me today, who is a coordinator over at Parkland, wanting to meet with me to talk about what Urbana students have as available to them over there. And so I'm going to meet with him hopefully next week to talk through that and just, what opportunities do we have for our students, and how can we expose them to, what field trips can we take, how can we bring them in so our students can see that, and in what capacity.
Yeah, that would
so
be really good. That does remind me, I know the school is trying, and there are some things that it does well, and I've kind of asked my daughter's going to be a senior next year, and so as she's gone through, her first year, freshman year was the COVID year, so she was home. That was weird, but I always do feel a little bit like I don't quite know what's going on. The morning announcements are great. I love that I get those too, and so I can click on them and read them. But this is just an example, and it's just my daughter, and it's not. I don't think this is pervasive, but they wanted kids to make requests for changes to their schedule by June 30th, and my daughter didn't. She missed that memo. I did too. And I don't know, maybe I saw it and I just didn't really register with me that I needed to do something. And I feel like sometimes a lot of the communications start with as you know, this is coming up, and I'm like, this is the first time I'm hearing about that. I did not know that. As you know, there's a big assembly tomorrow. I was like, okay. Good.
Well, and that is not unique, because I've heard that from other parents as well, and so I'm looking at doing a newsletter every Friday to families with, events coming up, with happenings or future happenings, and so just to help continue to build that relationship with families and to keep all families better informed of what's happening, because I'm actually working on a summer letter right now that I want to email to all families next week. So,
good.
So as soon as our 8th grade incoming freshmen get moved up in the system and skyward, so we have access to them, so it can actually come from the high school and not, because I feel like some from hearing is that sometimes emails come from the middle school regarding high school stuff, and parents don't draw that connection because they see middle school and they're expecting to see high school, but because we don't have, and this is, could be wrong, but this is my understanding, is early next week, the system will roll kids up to the next year officially in our messenger system, and so then hopefully we can get some stuff out. But I want to get a family letter out next week at some point.
That would be great.
So just registration, start of the school, and things like that, and then hopefully start more consistent communication with families as we get closer and closer. So I will say, the communication about prom was excellent. I always knew what was happening there. I knew where it was. I knew which day they had to fix their attendance. I knew when she had to pay. That
was clear, so it can be
Okay.
done. And I know some of it is hard because some of it doesn't apply to every family.
Yeah.
And so there's,
Yeah.
you always will have to
Yeah.
filter out
Yeah.
because it's easy to look at it now and be like, oh, that doesn't apply to
Yeah.
me. It's like, oh, there was something in there that I actually did need to know.
And then just, being a high school with all the different extracurricular activities happening, it can be hard to stay caught up on everything, especially when it's, you've got 20 clubs and, your student's only into these 3 and trying to
Yeah.
find it or, having that, so, but
And at
those
the-
are all things I'm looking into to see how we can hopefully streamline things.
Like that. And, the other thing that's challenging is that, like, it's an age when they're being coached towards adulthood. And sometimes I'm like, she's got it, she is a responsible kid, so I don't need to worry about
Yeah.
it. But then I get caught off guard by something and she's freaking out.
Yeah, and so because I love, parents giving students that independence, but at the same
Yeah.
time, parents need to also
Yeah.
know what's going on and be that check, right, when
Right.
something happens, or
Yes.
if they're missing something, or
Yeah.
things like that, so you're not caught off guard.
Right.
So,
And I can guide and help
Yeah.
and support
Okay.
all that stuff. Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah.
That would be
So-
good. Yeah.
so just things, hopefully on, trying to, build for the future.
Oh, great.
So,
That's really great. Yeah. Because, I know I'm just one parent. I've only had one kid go through the high school, but it's been a really good experience for her.
good,
Yeah.
good. So hopefully we can make her senior year just as good.
Yeah, just as
If
good.
not, maybe at least a little bit better, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, definitely. I almost hesitate to mention it because it's such a, I don't know, but so I've been involved with a little bit involved with the PTSA, just a couple of things, and then helped quite a bit with the choir boosters, and now starting to work with the drama boosters, and it's been fine. It is great. It's all parent driven. Parents and occasionally dedicated staff who are really pushing for it. It does seem to me like, I don't know, like a way to coordinate all of that. Like there is a lot of, maybe this goes to your, community partnerships. Like there are a lot of parents who like want to help, want to, in whatever way they can. There are a lot who don't, who can't, but there are a good number of people in this whole community who want to make the schools good and better.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it's an undertapped resource just because, I think because, in other volunteer activities, I've thought about like what parents will get involved with and what they won't. A very specific one-time task, like here, kind of, help us with this thing. People may say yes to a more open-ended, get to know. But fundraising too, like, I don't know. It's just a thought that there are some parents who've gone out there and raised a bunch of money for specific projects for the school. And we dream about being coordinated between all of us, but
That's not a bad idea. And so, that's, let's work towards that. And so let's just see how we can do that. And so,
that would
and look at,
that would be great.
the different, if we're looking at, band, choir, right? And
Yes.
then art, drama. So do we need to have, a council meeting? So is that what we're looking at? Like between each booster club?
Right.
Or each, department or
Right.
extracurricular? So that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
looking at our, so we've discussed our mission, right?
Yeah.
And our purpose. I've kind of touched on, what I believe the high school needs. Right? Looking at, I think you wrote down the list there.
I did,
about what we might need, and then looking at, yes, I support more money, more staffing, everything like that, but also what have we done systematically in the school? Talk about AVID, resources for AVID. So that would be an additional thing that I think we would need to invest in. And to me, it will be a full-on, 100% commitment for AVID. Community partnerships. We talked about being more inclusive with parents. But then how does that draw back to our ultimate decision recommendation? So, of what to do with Wiley, right?
Right.
And so, how many more meetings do we have?
2 weeks is the last one.
In 2 weeks, so we have one more meeting.
One more meeting.
One more meeting before we do the final report.
Right.
So I think we maybe start planning out what that recommendation might be, and then maybe that last one, hopefully we'll have more people to finalize a recommendation, a decision.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, I know we're being recorded and everything, so,
Yeah.
but, where do we think the ultimate best decision would be for Wiley? And from a high school lens. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day, it's one, increasing graduation rates. I think it's increasing, and I'm not sure if we have data on this, as I'm just trying to look at some reports, is, what percent of our students go to college? What percent go to community college? What percent go, is that being tracked? And I think I would need to touch base with the counseling department to see, or if the district tracks.
Yeah, I think they do.
They do that,
Yeah.
so, okay, so I just need to see that data coming forward. But ultimately, I think it's what puts our students on the path for success for those indicators. And then all the other underlying things about preparing our students, making sure they get the course credit, making sure Urbana is a, place, not just a space, all that. But I think the data tells us that when we look at graduation and who's going to what, right? And what percent of our students have a pathway, and what pathway are they choosing? Because, what are our students doing?
Yeah, I mean, that makes
And to
a lot of
me,
sense.
hearing the reports, even though I've unfortunately only been able to attend, this is my second one, I would lean towards, based off of what I'm hearing from the notes I've read, is a 6th grade center, because I do think that is the foundation to getting our students ready for a secondary level at the middle and then ultimately the high school. I think having a 6th grade center where we can surely focus on the transition of our students, focusing on academics, focusing on the SEL part of it, looking at, emotional regulation, social awareness, social growth, and, academic growth,
Yeah.
I think a building that focuses on that in 6th grade as a transition to 7th, 8th grade and into high school is probably going to be the best course.
Yeah.
If I had to say a second,
Yeah.
I would say a specialized elementary school or a specialized middle school, like dual language, whatever it might be. But my first, based off of the information I have and I've heard, is the 6th grade center. What's your, based off of your information at this point that you've heard?
Based on what I've heard, I agree that the 6th grade center is, could be very valuable. For the reasons that you laid out.
Yep.
That to get in that kind of crucial transition year, kind of build that transition, build the skills for those kids. I think through this whole process, the thing I'm concerned about, and this is technically the work of the elementary committee, like it's not a purview directly of the high school. But in my view, it really affects my vote. Like, I'm going to vote, I'm on the high school committee, but I'm, you know, like she said, I don't have to vote with
Based off of the committee,
recommendation.
yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know where the due diligence about what 5 elementary schools in this district looks like. I don't know where that's happening, where they're really drilling down and making sure, you know, in some sense, I don't doubt that they're doing it. Like, I trust Jennifer, I really do. I think probably these questions that we all have, I've heard she's smart and she knows.
She's one of the main reasons why I applied to her band.
Okay, very interesting.
Yes, so yeah, so.
But I think that, and as you know, probably being in public service, there's the people who are never going to be happy. Like, you know, people who are just they're just born to complain. It's okay.
Natural resistors to everything, yep.
Kind of need those
Yep.
people. They're good for something. And then, you know, but then there is like a healthy middle that's like influenceable. They're like, you know, like, I want to see what you're doing. I want to understand what you're doing, but I'm open to what you're doing. And I have in my head kind of like what that report could look like. Like, here's 5 elementaries, here's the room numbers, not room numbers, but here's the class sizes that we will have, here's the space at each school, here's, because I know this is maybe a little bit tangent, but it's come up that a lot of these rooms, with the possible exception of Thomas Paine, most of the schools are using all of their space. Like, they're using it for something. And absolutely, that space could be consolidated. They could probably find rooms to absorb more regular classrooms. But I don't know where that story is being told. And if I were sitting on the board, I would want to really understand that. I'd say, like, okay, right now King has, I don't know, making it up, but, you know, they have 4 classrooms they're using for special education and Title I activities. How many are they going to have after this decision? How many? And for every school, like, what that would look like, so that when the board makes a decision, they really know what they're doing to the elementary schools. And my feeling is that it could work. I guess the other question is, what if we grow? What if we grow and then 5 doesn't work anymore? And it was reassuring today to hear, like, okay, it's not like they're going to duck this out like a school that could only ever be a middle school. It could possibly, it's not working. Or if the elementaries do end up overcrowded, you could use it differently. But I would just like to see that case built more for my own vote.
Okay. Because I know John shared out some data for the meeting that I went to back in June.
Yeah.
And I looked at some of that data, and to me, numbers seem pretty stable for enrollment, and with the exception of a bubble class here and there, but if it's only like 5-10 kids, again, don't hold me to it, because I just, from based off what I remember, I'm like, okay, so numbers. So are you looking at, because to me, it also looked like that schools were not at capacity currently, the 5 elementary schools, right? And so there was still room for them to take on additional students.
Right.
Are you looking at more like the number of classrooms versus like physical classrooms versus the, you know, strands, like, you know, like I'm not, because again, just coming in, you know, like why Yankee Ridge,
Right.
2-strand school versus a 3-strand school,
Right.
and you know what classrooms are open. Are we looking at that, like the actual classroom availability, or are we looking at like classroom sizes? Both, because I think that they are while it's true that there is space in the elementary district, especially Thomas Paine. They just put this big addition on. It's not being used. Like, I think the situation at DPW, like Ruth asked for an email from the DPW principal who said, like, what she's using her space for. And it's like, you know, we're using it effectively. And I mean, I don't want to step outside of my lane. I just have some questions. I just want to understand this a bit better. That I don't think any of those schools, except maybe Thomas Paine, have truly empty classrooms. Like, those rooms are being used for something. And whether it's things that everybody is happy to get rid of, or it's somebody's baby. You know, like they're really, like I know at Leal, like Leal I think is one of the more full schools, and
there is a classroom that the special ed teacher uses. And she pulls kids out of classes and she has a full classroom. They could put her somewhere else, find a spot. She could wander, and but that would be a loss to the school to not have a space like that. And if I were on the board, I would want to really just understand that. Not as like a 4 there, 2 there, but just how many classrooms right now are being used for that purpose, and how many do we need to take over with? Because there were 12 classrooms at Wiley. How many do we need to take over in these other buildings in order to essentially keep classrooms to no increase in size or minimal?
Yeah.
And I think the other question is, like, it's true that enrollment has been, stable relatively, but what if it increases? Like, and how much would it need to increase? Because I think, the point that Ruth is making is that the university is investing like $50 million in faculty hiring. They want to hire faculty, like, across the campus. And, like, presumably those will be younger faculty who presumably will bring their families here. And I don't know, I mean, maybe that's not enough to make a difference, but it's not something to just ignore, I think. It's to say, like, well, suppose we get, 100 more kids, 50 more kids, 25, whatever it is, how will that look?
Well, I mean, typically, I think, in my experience in education, a bubble class of, or not even, because I mean, and we're also assuming that all the students are, if we say an increase of 50 to 100 kids, not all of them will be the same grade, right? And so you matriculate that out, K through 12. It's not so much. I mean, I think we're looking at a huge influx of students coming in for it to make a huge impact. But that being said, looking at the macro level, but if we get that much of a population boom, ideally we would have more property taxes coming in, right, for expansion projects, for those type of things. Once that happens, if we get that big boom where it's enough, and to me, it has to be more than 100 kids, 50 families coming in, and just being, not all of them would pick Urbana, right, because we got Champaign, Urbana, Tolono, Savoy, all those where it would, so it would have to be a very distinct, huge boom for Urbana, and it would have to be a few hundred to even 1,000 or more but like I said, it would be looking at those property taxes too, and a bigger base to come in, and also state funding would increase as well, for because our budget, the money that we get is also from the state from attendance, right, and from enrollment numbers. So, to me, ideally, there would be that correlation there.
So, based on what you've seen that John put together, do you feel comfortable that we could do this with 5 schools? Okay.
I would feel comfortable, yes.
Yeah.
Just because I don't, based off of the trend data, and based off of, what we're expecting to see, I don't see a huge boom happening that would impact. And, if we started to see that boom, then we could start looking at, expansion projects or different options, right? Yeah. And that's something that I would, so based off of what I've seen, I'm comfortable with a 6th grade campus, just because I just feel like the long-term investment for our students at the secondary level will far outweigh, anything. And like I said, not to say that our elementary campuses should endure larger enrollments, because I see it more of it being balanced out. Now, if you're asking me about facility usage, that I can't address, that I don't know, because I haven't been to enough meetings to see that. And so, but, I do feel like it's balanced based off of the numbers that I've seen, and with appropriate strands for our teachers to handle for the class sizes that they have.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's good.
So that's just based off, for me, coming in from my lens, what I feel comfortable at this point. Now, if I see something dramatically different, then, when we come back next time, I might say something different, but based off of everything that I'm seeing, I would look for a 6th grade center.
Okay.
So that's what I would advocate for. So.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I mean, I still feel like there are such a push to talk about data. What about like high school needs? So if we flesh this out of like staffing, can you say more about that? Do you know more about like how does Urbana maybe compare in their staffing? Are they kind of standard?
Yeah, I think it's I would say it's on par for what a high school level needs. Like based off of what I've seen, I don't see any huge overcrowding of classes. I don't see an overcrowding at all. I see average class sizes. And it also depends on enrollment in courses that determine class sizes for some, and then whether it's enough students to run a course or not. And so I don't see any need for, an emergency, request or anything like that. If they're looking at, additional staffing for programs we want to do, yes. Like, for example, this year our incoming freshmen will have a freshman seminar connected to lunch. So instead of a 15-minute lunch where we know that's a lot of unstructured time, half that time, because in reality, most students can eat in 15 minutes on average. And so with about a 25-minute lunch period and then a 25-minute advisory period to work on organizational, goal setting, SEL type topics, additional staffing for that, in which we were able to do. And I believe we also got an additional English and math staffing to help compensate for staff who are covering that advisory period. And so I think from the conversations I had, I think staffing has been fairly compensated. And so I think we're pretty balanced and not way off, like overcrowded classes. I will say, like in Champaign, my largest class was 38 kids. I've not seen.
Was that at the middle school?
At the 8th grade, middle school, yes. And that was about 10, 12 years ago, even before I became an administrator. So maybe more than that, maybe like about 15 years ago. But I don't see class numbers that high at this point in time. So
that's good to know.
Yeah.
So did you say that you were able to hire new staff to do that advisory?
Yep. So we had staff members who volunteered to teach that for the, as a course, because they have 5 courses that they teach. And so because we gave up one, and so we were able to compensate by getting additional staffing, and we were able to fill those positions to hire people.
Teachers.
Yep, hire teachers, because we know there's also the teacher shortage, which is very real, right? And so, because I know that we'll probably have to do a few 6 assignments to cover a position or 2 that we just can't fill at this point, which honestly is pretty good compared to a year or 2 ago, I think, here at Urbana and in other schools. So we have applicants who are wanting to come, so which is a very good thing.
That is
good. Yes.
Yeah, so, and I mean, I'm sure it varies, but are they like mostly new teachers or kind of experienced
It
teachers?
varies. From what I've seen on our new staff, because I'm also starting to plan new teacher orientation, we've got a good mix of experienced first-year teachers. I think we even hired a teacher from Michigan who's relocating with, I believe, a significant other. So,
It's interesting. That's good to hear. Yeah. So what about like other kinds of staff, like counselors and social workers and other administrators in the building?
Well, administrative, we're fully staffed. I believe we just need one more counselor. No, I do know we need one more counselor. So if you know of anybody. But social workers, we are fully staffed with social workers as well. So.
If you could just have unlimited funds and hire anywhere, where would you hire?
Where?
Yeah.
And what, like?
I mean, to do what for the school?
If I had unlimited funds, I would hire people to really focus in on career exploration, college exploration. I'm really making sure that our students have those opportunities to get those experiences.
Yeah.
And it'll probably fall under the non-departmental category, but just to really make sure that our students get that exposure and know that. And so I would really look at that.
That would be awesome.
And if I were to have to say, you know, I would always advocate for foreign language, to increase our foreign language exposure, because right now it's primarily, it is Spanish, French, and German. You know, I would love to expand to Chinese, I would love to expand to Korean, I would love to get more Portuguese, I would love to expand that.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
So who does the career and college exploration, is that in the, who does that now?
Well, right now we have a staff member in the counseling department who works on that. And as soon as she returns, I want to dig in deeper into knowing what's currently being done and to increase that exposure.
Yeah. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so
Okay.
we've got some time here,
We do.
25 minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, yeah, no, it's, you know, I know it's just a lot of, you know, conversing back and forth of ideas, and then me just talking about, you know, what I'm liking, what I'm wanting to do going
Yeah.
forward, so, and working on, so, but I, you know,
Well, it's very interesting.
yeah. So I'm hoping for our next meeting, we focus on the final proposal, looking at the data that the group looked at before, and maybe combine it with my thoughts of what the high school needs, beyond staffing needs for that final decision. So,
Hope we can.
yep.
Will you be here next week, or in 2 weeks?
Let's see, what day is it? They said today is the 11th, the 25th?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep, it's on my calendar. I have nothing conflicting, so I will be here.
I'm actually going to be out of town that week.
Okay.
It's the only
So
meeting I
make sure you share those notes.
I will share these notes.
So in case I have to share out next time.
Good point. Yeah, I'll type them up
So,
and send them to you.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a really good conversation. I'm so glad that you're here. I think that you were really good for Urbana. That's my
Thank you. And, you know, it's my philosophy that it's not I'll just put it out there, it's not an Urbana way, it's not a Champaign way. I operate on what's best for our students' way. And so, because sometimes I hear that we don't want to be like, or, you know, we want the Urbana way or the Champaign way. It's about what's best for students, what's best for our scholars. So,
Yeah.
How's it going in here?
okay, very small group, obviously.
Solving all those problems? Well, you've been a steadfast member and you're new, so she pulled you in, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. And then I kind of shared my mission and vision going forward with the high school and
good.
what I felt that we need, you know, and I'll preface it with only being a week and a half into it,
Yeah.
fully into it, so.
Well, but I think that your experience coming from the middle school level probably incites some of your opinions on
Yes,
that.
oh, yes, it does, yes.
Yeah, I bet you have a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, because I've already made it clear
Yeah.
what I'm in favor of, you know,
Yeah.
and so.
And I like the way that you focus on solutions and what could be really good, not just like the problems.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have to
There's a
address
lot of
problems.
Oh, yeah.
The problems are the way things are right now, so I feel
Yes.
like
Yeah.
can only get better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And they're arguing about 5 elementaries versus 6, and they're saying, oh, well, there's all of this discipline data and all of this poor map scores. I was like, yeah, that's with 6 elementaries. So, like, that's not solving the problem by keeping the 6. So, I'm talking about that in there. Rakaya kind of threw down in there. It was awesome.
Did she?
Yeah, she was like, you have the least productive group. She was awesome. I'm going to give her a hug later.
Who was this?
Rakaya, the
In the elementary
in
group.
charge.
Oh,
Yes, she
okay.
was like, you guys need to start coming up with lists of problems and then figuring out how you're going to, you know, use this money to solve them. But you guys are just talking about 5 or 6 elementaries. It was awesome. She really threw down. And then it was very productive, and she got a marker out, and they started
They
making
made
lists.
their list.
Oh, there you
Yes,
go.
Good for
All
her.
right.
Good
So,
for her.
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Well, this group has been my favorite group to sit in on in all of the meetings we've had so far. And I feel like it's small enough you could have really quality conversations.
Yes.
That is true, and I think in some ways, like, you know, in every group, we've talked about how obviously this decision does impact the high school, but the link just isn't as strong. I mean, it's not as direct an
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah, there is a link, but it's more of a secondary
It's
link.
more of a secondary
After,
link. Yeah.
based off of that, then the filter down.
And so it's
effect.
just
And
less
so it's there.
controversial, less strong opinions about what needs to happen, so we can just
Yeah.
talk about what's going well and what we can build on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and usually there's more than just two, so
Yeah,
usually the
everybody's
conversation goes a
on.
little bit longer.
I know.
But,
Well,
Because I've only been able to attend one other one that happened in June. And then I went on a, quick trip and then started here, and so this was the
there's
first
only
one.
one more scheduled, right now? So
Yeah.
maybe we'll get to a resolution, maybe. We'll
maybe,
see.
we'll see.
Okay.
I hope so. I mean, it seems like it's getting closer.
'Cause
I think that they're
yeah.
just, they have to write an actual report to give to the board, and I feel
Okay.
like some of the frustration that was coming from Rakaya in there is that, like, what's your tangible, like, written thing that you're gonna bring and say, this is the analysis that this group did to the issues we're facing at this level, and how this committee's charge is addressing those concerns and those needs at this elementary level, and which of the charge options fits those needs to find a solution. And that's kind of where she was driving them towards. So, and it could be that the elementary level feels that, X option is the best option, and this group feels that's the best option. That's fine, because there can be multiple committee reports and multiple committee outcomes, but in the end, there'll only be one recommendation. But I think part of it was a gathering of needs too, because this committee's report will be something that will live on to be a reference point in the future. Like, we pulled out the last facilities report from 10 years ago and said, okay, well, these were the needs that were identified. We still haven't met all of them. So are those still needs? Yes, no. You can add those to the report. So it's kind of like a writing of a document that can live on as a
Right.
statement that's saying, hey, we do have a lot of needs, and this is the limited resources that we've chose to spend this group of needs on, and there's still going to be more for next time.
Definitely. And, I think I said this at the first meeting, but you can only get so much from the data. You can only,
Yes.
look at the data. If you're not informed by some direction that you're trying to head, then that influences what data you ask for.
Yeah.
And I feel like right now in the folder, there's just so much information.
Yes.
And people had an idea, let me ask for that, they got it, or they didn't, they got it, it's like, well, what does that tell you?
I know.
Now you know X, about how many discipline reports there were, and that doesn't necessarily then tell you what to do with Wiley, so you do need a philosophy. Where are we heading?
Yes.
What do we think will work best?
Yes.
And, it shouldn't fly in the face of the data, you need to, say how it connects.
Yeah.
But, if you have a lot of discipline issues, that doesn't tell you what's the best way to solve that, what to do about it.
Right.
5 schools will make it better, make it worse, have no effect.
Right. Well, I think I said, Jesse wasn't here, but one of my frustrations of sitting through, and I didn't have a lot of skin in the game for that, but I have to sit through all the meetings and hear about it, which is fine. But, one of my frustrations with the dual language discussions that went on last fall was that in the end, there isn't a whole lot of examples to support, a whole school versus stranded model of dual language, and we really want to do the whole school model, and we think it's going to be best for our kids. Well, the response from the board and somewhat the public of some of this outrage was that we're basically using our kids as test subjects, and that just really bothered me, because at some level you have to buy in to whatever this decision is, and you can't just say, well, we're just winging it. It's like you said, the data, you shouldn't fly in the face of it, but at the same time, there really necessarily isn't an all right or an all wrong here. And just like there isn't for the dual language, it just really bothered me that they're trying to, it's just the imagery of it. It's just we're not, science experiments,
Right. And I think that, obviously you can and should take a look at the research, but, and that will inform where you go. But, I think a couple of things. One is that you're never going to find a study that exactly matches the situation that you're trying to address. There's some other study, they looked at the impact, they decided this was best. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be what's best for Urbana. And it also means sometimes you have to try something new.
Yes.
And if it's new, it may not have been researched, it doesn't mean it's not a good idea.
Maybe we'll be the next example of
Exactly.
a model.
Right.
You know, so it's like have that hope and that, you know, optimism, I guess, is somewhat what we need. I hope.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, that was, disappointing. When I first heard about this committee, I thought it was great. I thought, like, all the ideas, we could do something with Wiley, it will be very exciting. And then
Yes.
it wasn't long before the backlash started.
Oh, you were one of those really great community members, and we're so glad you're still here. Oh, I know. Well, some of the folks that have been a little more outspoken, I think that the whole strategy is to drag it out as long as possible so that the people that actually came with a good heart to do the right thing just burn out and leave. And then all that's left is the people that want to grind away on it. And I mean, really, I think that's an actual, and I'm like, to me, it's so hard to think of people being so, what's the word, just, because I don't have, like, I'm just like innately like here to serve the public, like that's not why I work for a public school district, is to be conniving, and so it's very strange to me that there's actually people that think that way, I guess, because that's not how I was raised or why I'm here. It's just weird.
I couldn't agree more, and I think, like, it hardly makes, if you give it a second thought, like, do you really think these people took this job and are here because they want to harm Urbana schools? Like, that makes no sense.
It's all to do with this whole like lack of trust though, and I do think that's a legitimate problem that our, you know, admin team, executive team, and board level is really facing. I don't know how to solve that other than to continue this public process that we're doing. You know, it's just, there's just a lot of bad press or whatever about it or bad blood, I guess, amongst community members that feel somehow that they weren't part of the process, but that's the whole problem, is like, this is the process and you are being involved. So it's really difficult because it was like, yeah, we're getting the process started, like this is the process, but they felt like the harm was already done. And it was like, well, this is hopefully helping. I'm not sure it is, but.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of demoralizing, but.
Yeah, we'll stick with it.
I'm sticking with it.
Absolutely, stay with it, and just know that, you know, this whole trust thing is not unique to Urbana.
No.
Right, I mean, to me, I just feel like there's a lot of distrust against systems.
True.
As of late.
That is
Good
very
point.
And for different reasons, because like I know where I came from, there's distrust over there.
Good
but
point.
for different issues that community is holding as
True.
important, and so, but one thing I will say is I like that there's at least a process here where stakeholders can have a say, right? And
Yes.
they're working together.
I really think Urbana does a good job with
Yes.
public input. I really do think that we want people to be heard, and I think our board really likes to hear from people, and that really helps.
Yes.
So I do think they value that, and maybe a lot of boards do, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I know Urbana does.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think, also, I think Peggy said it too, that of course you need people from the administration involved. They know the school, they know schools, like, I've learned so much.
There's a very weird, like, anti-administration dynamic at Urbana, and maybe that's where you came from too. It really surprised me when I got here, because I came from the Park District at Urbana, where our board is very supportive of staff. And so it was very strange to me to come and have this kind of like negativity from our board towards the administrative staff specifically, not all the staff. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, somebody's going to do the work of the people in those jobs. I mean, I'm not really sure what they want, who else would do that, I guess.
Yeah,
So it's just very strange to me.
yeah.
It's not everybody, it's a small few.
Yeah, interesting.
It is very weird, because I've only been here a year, so that's kind of been my own experience too, like, I'm just gonna, you know, and boards change, and especially.
Urbana Park District?
Yeah, I was there for, I was their business manager for 10 years before I came here, but I have been there for 15, so. But yeah, it's just a very different dynamic, but school boards especially, there's a lot of turnover on boards, because it's only a 4-year term, and a lot of people want to be on school boards while their kids are in school, and then they leave. And so, like, the park board that I was at, our board president's been president for 30 years. So it's like, and you do get board members like that, you know, our previous board president here was here for a very long time, Paul's served multiple terms, but there's a lot of churn and turnover amongst the board members, so I'm just kind of like, I'm just going to write that out.
Yeah.
It'll change. It's just one of those things that ebbs and flows, and I just hope it gets better, because it's made my job pretty miserable at times, like, yeah.
But it's something that the public really cares about, I mean, or at least like when an issue comes up that impacts their family, then they
Yeah.
care a lot and they really turn out and get involved. It's not, I mean, that's true of all boards, but it feels like, especially school boards.
Well, I grew up in Urbana, and so when this whole Wiley thing started, you know, I have a lot of friends that still live here, and they were calling me because I work in Urbana, and, you know, I think it helped that they had somebody that they could talk to say, like, no, this is the beginning of a process, we want everybody's voice on the table, like, because it all sounded like a big surprise, right? And I was like, it was the first time we talked about it. And we wanted to make sure that that was at a public forum. There wasn't a bunch of meetings beforehand. There wasn't, you know, it was an idea that we had in January that we brought to the board in February that we thought was a good idea. And, you know, and so that was interesting, though, that kind of got thrown back at us. So, I don't know. It sure didn't help with some of the trust problems.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But you're right, like, I feel like what you said about people really care about the school district, because when you change their schools, you get a lot of mama bears. Because I try to put myself in those Wiley parents' shoes too. Like, my friends calling me like, oh my God, my kids aren't going to go to school here next year. And it was really heartbreaking. Like, but trying to also spread the message of like, hey, we're really trying to do great things in Urbana, but without trying to say that Wiley wasn't great, right? Because it was, and I think that was really special. But that there's a lot of needs in the district that we're hoping that we can make some change. So, yeah, it's hard.
It is hard. It's really hard.
So I've actually really enjoyed this committee. I don't know.
I have too. I'm a weird person who kind of likes meetings.
Well, and I don't have to vote, so I just get to float around and listen to these, like, people have these kind of really interesting philosophical conversations.
Are you're a voting member?
Am I a voting member?
I think you are.
I think I am. Okay.
I think you are. I'm
Okay.
not totally sure, since you weren't like, because Taryn, was Taryn on it? I don't even know.
I know I came to one in June, and I'm here. This is my second one, so I don't know if I'm.
There's something about you have to
eligible.
attend 50% of the
Oh, well, then
meetings.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I'm going to be a voting member then if I'm not here.
Find that.
You might have been a voting member, but now you
No, I'm
can't
not,
vote
yeah.
or something. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask
Okay.
somebody who's in charge. That's not me.
Okay.
I'm just here for input, to give input.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
It's about 7 minutes left.
oh, yeah.
Oh, is it time to go?
Yeah, 8 minutes
8
left.
minutes left. Yeah. Well, this has been really interesting.
Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
I hope you do too.
Yep, it's going to be busy.
Busy with what?
It's time, all of our grant expenditure reports are due, so I've got to get all of, our fiscal year ended June 30th, so I got to get all of the last of our closing entries posted so that we can get all of the expenditure reports out to staff, and then the people that are in charge of the grants file the reports, and just busy time. It's actually really busy. Everybody's like, oh, you get lighter in the summer? No. It's extra busy. Our audit's in the summer too, our financial audit, so we're really, really busy.
That's too bad.
Yeah, well, it's okay.
Yeah,
Makes the days fly by.
that's true.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good job.
Yeah, that's good.
I like the people.
You guys seem like a good group. Are you, true for you too, that it's busy in the summer?
Yes. I mean, there's about a 2 or 3 week window in June, but then
Yeah.
July always picks up.
Yeah, I was able to take
Yeah.
vacation in June too. That was good. I took
Yeah,
my kids to
so-
the Grand Canyon.
Oh, wow. I love the
I've
Grand
never been.
Canyon. Loved the Grand Canyon.
I've never been there either.